Hello everybody, you're welcome back again to the Reggae Appreciation Society. It's needless to say that Bob Marley is the biggest reggae artist of all time and the face of that genre, with a fan base that runs into hundreds of millions of people, with 13 legendary and spectacular studio albums that are among the greatest works of art ever produced. With such a humongous fan base, there are uncountable opinions regarding Bob's work, as he was many things to so many people. Whether you were in the mood for an injection of militancy from the Survival album, or you just felt like kicking back and partying with Kaya, there was always something for everyone's taste. Naturally, there are tons of divergent opinions on Bob Marley's greatest ever album, and it's a debate that can never really end. However, music commentators and critics have dubbed the Exodus album as Bob Marley's best, and the album was even rated by Time magazine as being the album of the 20th century. But if we're going by what the fans think, lots of opinion polls have Exodus in a four-way tie along with Rastaman Vibration, Survival and Uprising. But in terms of pure spiritual catharsis, artistic expression and all-round brilliance, I would personally choose Uprising as Bob Marley's magnum opus. It was Bob's last album released in his lifetime and in the true sense of the word represents the peak of his musical development after 18 years in the business, and showcased a perfect balance between his spiritual side and revolutionary consciousness. Let's take a look at the incredible Uprising album. The album was released exactly 43 years ago as at the date of the making of this video, on the 10th of June 1980, almost a year before Bob passed away. It was recorded while Bob was undergoing grueling chemotherapy and facing the prospect of not making it through. It was Bob's most spiritually focused body of work, and has been suggested by some schools of thought to be the second installment of a 3-album trilogy that began with Survival, an album that symbolized staying alive in the face of Babylon's onslaught, and the second album, Uprising, was supposed to symbolize a revolt or breaking off of shackles. Then the third, the Confrontation album, that was a posthumous album, symbolized taking the war to Babylon. But Rita Marley confirmed that Bob Marley was preparing to go and meet his God, and that Uprising signified his elevation to a higher level of consciousness. Either way, Bob's last album before his death signified victory for his soul rather than mortal defeat by cancer. Despite the sad circumstances surrounding Bob Marley at the time, the Uprising album was not an album of regrets. The main theme of the album is preparing oneself for the afterlife. The album art, designed by his friend and artist Neville Garrick, depicts a muscular version of Bob Marley, a Rasta man raising both fists in the air, with the rising sun coming up behind a mountain behind him. It's understandable why a large host of music commentators regard Exodus as his best work, but in terms of inspiration, there's a huge difference between both albums. While Exodus was created after a close shave with death, Uprising was conceived as a musical parting gift that Bob gave to mankind before switching over to eternity. Call it a last will and testament to future generations if you will. Incidentally, it was his 12th album and contained 12 magnificent songs, each one sounding like a preacher's final exhortation to his congregation. Coming in from the Cold is the first track on the album, and from the opening twang of the lead guitar, you just knew that something special was starting. Reggae has lots of songs that give you a lift, but Coming In From The Cold is one of the most inspirational and encouraging that we will ever hear. It's a song that many people give credit for getting them through hard times, reminding you that when one door is closed, many more are open. The next track, Real Situation, is a 3-minute lamentation of the wickedness and conflicts in the world. The song was inspired by all the wars springing up all over the world, from Yemen to Afghanistan and all the way down to El Salvador. Then you had the slow throbbing masterpiece that was Bad Card. Them I go tired to see we face, can't get me out of the race. The opening lines to another inspirational treasure that preached defiance and perseverance in the face of opposition to our hopes and dreams. Over the years, many fans have hinted that the song was actually a veiled dig at Bob's former manager Don Taylor, who he had parted ways with just before he wrote the song. It was said that both men fell out after Bob Marley's concert in Gabon in 1980, when it came to light that Taylor might have been funny with Bob's money. Then you have Pimper's Paradise, a cautionary tale about a fun-loving young lady who falls victim to the fast life and succumbs to the dark side of all the glamour all sung in a bouncy, hypnotic instrumental that showcased Bob Marley's band at their best. Some people have insinuated that the song was a critique of Bob's girlfriend and the mother of Damian Marley in Cindy Breakspeare, but I personally doubt it. Bob, being a player, had met lots of girls, and some of them would definitely have fit the bill and inspired the song. Zion Train followed the same uplifting path of coming in from the cold, encouraging Jah people to be hopeful and patient as they wait for redemption, admonishing listeners not to gain the world and lose their souls, but to wait for divine help or the Zion Train. Then you have the absolute banger in Could You Be Loved, the throbbing and bouncy masterpiece of instrumentals, perfectly accompanied by Bob's yearning and piercing vocals, admonishing us all to love our fellow man and not let hate take over our hearts, no matter what we face. Chris Blackwell, as the executive producer, felt that the album was really soulful and almost too sober and dark, so he asked Bob to come up with a song that was really bouncy, danceable and upbeat. And trust Bob, he really brought it on with the fantastic galloping instrumentals supplied by the Wailers, who at that time could have been likened to an extremely well-sharpened katana blade or a well-tuned Rolls-Royce engine. Could You Be Loved was the album's first single and the biggest hit, entering the top 10 in 12 countries. It was also listed among Rolling Stones magazine's 2021 countdown of the top 500 songs of all time. To end the album, Bob saved the best for last with Redemption Song. It was the last song that he recorded, and when he was making that song, he was secretly dealing with a lot of pain and the growing sense of his own mortality. If the term less is more were to be a song, it would be Redemption Song. It's the most unique of all of his tracks, as it had no instruments except Bob's passionate yearning crooning over a simple box guitar. The lyrics were inspired by a 1937 speech by Marcus Garvey, and it became one of the most unforgettable songs of all time. It's one of the most sober and poignant tracks ever and gives me goosebumps every time I listen to it. A fabulous icing on a delightful cake of an album that is one of the greatest in music history, and proved that Bob was no ordinary musician. More often than not, when an artist churns out plenty of music and albums, the quality declines over time. Chris Blackwell himself famously said that the average artist only has 10 decent albums in them, but Bob changed that narrative when on his 12th album, made while struggling with a chronic and eventually fatal illness, showed that he could keep bringing it just as hard and as hot as if he were a new artist. Uprising was a stunning testament to the creative stamina of Bob Marley and his band. The album has become something of a soundtrack to millions of people who have needed motivation over the past 4 decades, and was a thrilling farewell from the legend that is Bob Marley. So there you have it. Thank you for watching the video today. Please leave a like, subscribe, and until next time, Jah bless.